All right, so let's get it going here. So welcome back, everybody, to episode 7 of The Size Up. It's really cool to be back with another episode here. This time we're coming from my basement because it's not as late as the last one, so the kids are still running around upstairs because we're still during COVID-19 pandemic, quarantine, stay at home. I don't even know where we're at with all this stuff anymore, but it's been a lot of days home. But what this is doing for the podcast is allowing me to bring a guest that I was waiting to have on till he came to the East Coast, because he's currently on the West Coast with us, from the hit drama on Fox 911, none other than Oliver Stark. What's up, Oliver?
Hey man, how are you? I'm glad. I'm excited. We're finally getting a chance to do this.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for a while, man. And joining us too, before we get too far, is Rob from National Fire Radio. I think he's a little starstruck that I have a famous person on the podcast. He wanted to jump in and co-host this one with me, I think. What's up, Rob?
No, you know, it's a fun day here in Paradise up in New York, so we can't complain. The dogs haven't destroyed most of the house today, so we're all right.
Nice. So, Oliver, where are we finding you today in the world?
I'm in Los Angeles. I've been living here for 4 years, so this is where my life is now. So yeah, I'm safely staying at home in my house over on the east side of LA, and just riding it all out, really.
That's it, man. We're doing the best we can. You can definitely tell you've been safely staying at home, because your hair is not what we see on your normal social media there.
I'm going through I'm fighting daily urges to shave it off. There was a time when I was thinking like this is the time to try that and go for it. But then I'm like, what if suddenly things do quiet down and we're going back to work and I'm still in the awkward regrowth stage? So I've just decided to let it grow into this thing that I carry around with me at the moment.
There's nothing wrong with that, man. I mean, I'm going for the 1990s Glenn Plake skier look right now with my mohawk.
Yeah, you're making it work, though. You're making it work.
I'm getting there. It's a lot of product, man. I'm like tripling up on it.
I can only imagine how much product that thing takes.
I'm just going for like mad scientist when, especially if I get off, like if I take my helmet off or something, it's just.
Oh, the helmet.
But I would be like, I trust that guy. I trust him because he looks like a man.
So it's kind of crazy how I came to know Oliver. And it's really weird that we're actually doing this now, because it was about a year ago that we actually met. And what happened is I still, even though I don't run 555 social media, I still keep very tight tabs and watches on it. And one night we had released a new hat and people were commenting on the hat. And I happened to notice that one of the people that commented had one of those little blue check marks next to his name on Instagram. And I'm like, blue check mark, that means this person is somebody, like they're verified by the IG, right? So social media lure, I clicked on it and lo and behold, there's Oliver, who plays Buck on my son Finn's literally favorite TV show, 911. And I was like, oh snap, I got to send this dude a message. And I did. And sure enough, Oliver responded right back, saying he was a fan of 555 and what we were doing. And that kind of developed into this friendship online where we've been talking for the entire year about fitness, the show, you know, firefighting and things like that. And it grew into this. But dude, I can't thank you enough for that support for 555.
No, that's like, you know, listen, when we started working on a show, me and the rest of the cast really were very like aware of the fact that we get put in the spotlight for what we're doing, but really we're portraying the real guys, like, you know, you guys. So we were all very keen to like look at charities and stuff and be a part of that world that is kind of giving back something to the firefighters community. And 555 was one that I came across and really understood the message and you know, felt very in line with the things that I do. And so I was just, I think I bought a couple of t-shirts from him, and I saw the hat and I was like, I want the hat too. And so it's, you know, it's funny how things go and work out. But yeah, it's been lovely to kind of get to connect with you through it and understand and you know, the things that I have spoken to you about have then filtered back into my work. So it's been really helpful for me. At the same time, it's just a nice personal experience.
Oliver, I gotta say, I think it's pretty awesome that for the cast, like I had no idea that the cast was participating in like finding charities and actually going out and doing the legwork to seek them out and find out what their message was and their mission, and then put donations. And I think that's really honorable. And I mean, for myself, I'm just kind of blown away by that, because like, and I don't know if this will come out wrong, but I like would not think of the cast.
No,
like,
sure, I get that.
And I think it's awesome.
No, it's a good bunch of people, and even if it's just going to some of the LAFD Foundation things and certain fundraisers, and just, as I say, it's kind of just being aware for us that we are representing people that consider you heroes, and I hope you consider yourself the same thing. So wanting to show that we don't all just think like, oh yeah, but we're cool, we're on TV doing it. That we know that there are real people whose job that actually is.
It was funny too, because when we had first met, I think just a week or two before, so Finn had been watching the show on Hulu, so he kind of was binge watching it. This all happened around the same time, which is just that, like, the universe is, however the universe works, it works. But there was, so he's like, Dad, you gotta sit down and watch this episode with me. I'm like, Bud, I don't have to watch this show, man. It's like what I do. It's like, come on. He's like,
we've seen this before, buddy.
Right? So he's like pressuring me into watching it. So I watch this one, and it starts out, and it's a full moon episode. And I'm like, oh boy, the full moon. And here goes Buck and his partner for a maternity at a prenatal yoga class, where every woman in the prenatal yoga class decides to go into labor at the same time. And Finn's like, Dad, have you ever done this before? I'm like, listen, Finn, Daddy's delivered a baby or two in his career, but 8 women don't go into labor at the same time.
But there are, and of course we take things further, but I think there is some kind of statistic that on a full moon more women give birth.
There is.
So we were just condensing that into one room. So we take the things that are true and there's some evidence behind, and then we just amplify it. And I love that scene. I think that scene was so fun to like make, and because it was like one over here drops, and then one over here drops, and then one over here, and it was just obviously just me and one other guy. And so yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that's the thing with the show. I feel like we try our best to kind of keep it somewhat realistic in how it would be, but then as much as you can kind of have that fun around it and kind of show a different quirky side to it, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we talked about right when I had conveyed that story back to you. Like, full moons are busier for sure. Like, there's always a lore about the full moon. That's a new one by me, buddy. And you're like, yeah, it's hard to remember that it is a drama. It is a TV show that you want to watch. And you guys do a good job of mixing up a lot of stories into one to keep the audience engaged, for sure.
Yeah, I think the kind of pace of the show, that it's like, we're not a show where there's one big emergency that takes up each episode. We have a couple episodes like that, but for the most part, it's like 4 or 5, and hopefully showing the kind of varied scope of spectrum of jobs of calls that these guys, do go out on. That it's not all fighting fires.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you have the medical end of it, you have the police end of it, and something that I think really separates your show from a lot of the other ones is the dispatch end of it.
Yes.
And the fact
that
Jennifer Love Hewitt is the dispatcher definitely is a bonus on that.
That helps. Because I've heard it described before, and I guess it's true, and I'm sure you guys would agree, right, in the sense that they are the first responders, right? Those are the people on the phone that maybe talking somebody down, maybe giving medical instruction before you guys are able to get there. So I think to kind of show and kind of shine that spotlight on them is something I've not seen on another TV show, and something that me as a civilian has never really thought about before. So it's cool to get to be a part of highlighting that job as well, because I don't think there's too much public understanding of what that job entails.
Yeah, my mother actually retired a couple of years ago, and she did, I think it was 26 or 28 years in dispatch, and she's a dispatching supervisor for Sullivan County 911. And it was, I mean, I remember when I got involved in emergency services and I started my career, there was a summer where she called me and she was just crying, and she had like a bad week, and she had like had two people where she was the last person that those people talked to before they perished in a fire, and the other one was something else. And like, it was just a bad year. Like, and that happens in the profession, I guess, but like, you really think about that, and like, there's like, we can see each other right now. So like, if you're not happy with something I'm saying, I see it and I can get that reaction. But to be as helpless on the other end of a phone and not see the caller and have to hear, like, I think your imagination can play even such.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's why I can't. I could never do the phone component of being a dispatcher. I can tell people where to go and like fill out, units and stuff and be like, second alarm, cool, let's send them. But the actual talking to somebody who's getting their ass rocked, if somebody's beaten on somebody, I think that's what my mom said that one day. It was a domestic abuse case, and there was the kid called and said, yeah, daddy's really angry at mom, and my mother could hear like the impact of the guy hitting. And I was just like, and she said, and all I can do is sit there and go, I hope those police officers drive fast.
So helpless, but at the same time trying to offer whatever help they can. And one of our new writers coming into the fourth season was a dispatcher for 20 years, and she's now a writer for TV. So hopefully, she can continue to kind of flesh out that stuff and bring moments like that in, that, just really hit home how hard and difficult mentally that job can be.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of what we're seeing now. I dispatched for about 8 years, and it's an interesting position to be in for sure. And what you guys, again, on the show that I've noticed, at least from watching along with Finn, is just that mental aspect and the stressors that it brings on us. Dispatchers, police, fire, and I know for the tsunami episode, you were going through, Buck, your character was definitely going through some mental stressors, and I think you do a really good job. The show does a good job of showing that as a different side than just the flashy light sirens and uniforms.
Yeah. I think a whole thing around it is not just showing a like tough macho element, but the psychological impact as well. I know in the first season, Pete, who plays the captain on the show, Bobby Nash, he had a storyline where a call that he couldn't save the guy just hit him really hard. That particular one, and he was contemplating some really dark stuff, and a real life captain reached out to him and said, "I've never seen what I sometimes feel so accurately portrayed. So thank you, because it is really hard sometimes, and it's not always." The glamour of saving lives, and even actually, it's funny, the little things that people have picked up on that really surprised me. For example, in that tsunami episode that you mentioned, there's a bit where I'm in the water and I kind of got somebody up onto this fire truck, and then I think it's like 12 more bodies come around the corner. I just had this moment of like, here we go again before I go and save them. And this guy reached out to me on Instagram, he's a firefighter, and he said, thanks. Like, that moment really read to me that it's not always like, yes, more people to save. It's like, oh man, here we go again. And then it's not always so, just, I guess it is adrenaline and instinct that takes over, but it's not always easy and it's not always fun. It's like, all right, fine, here we go. And so that we get to kind of play out those moments, I think is hopefully fleshing out that job a little bit more. And as I say, just kind of shining a light on all aspects of it.
Yeah, it's very much bringing it back to the people who wear uniforms, whether they be police, fire, EMS, military, are all just people like everyone else. You just choose to do a really challenging job.
Yeah, and when it's funny you said it, because the like log line for the show when I first joined on it was these people who have their personal emergencies balancing it with the emergencies that they have to go on as part of their job. And it's true, right? It's like,
yeah,
as somebody who doesn't do that job, you sometimes you forget the first responders are real people, that there's something going on at home, but then when the time comes, you guys are going to still come through that door and save me and put your own personal emergency at the back of your mind or whatever it is. And I think that was a real goal of the show, to show that, yeah, you're right, it's people, and the uniform may feel like some kind of shield to that, but it's not. And there are just real people with their own personal emergencies underneath it.
100%. How did you prepare for this role when you like got cast for this show? Is there like, did they send you to like do a ride along, or did you like read books, or like how because like, you know, a lot of people have been watching stuff on that Waco series, and that guy had to play David Koresh from the Branch Davidian. I don't know how he did it, but like he did it really well. But like, how do you get yourself prepared for that?
So I watched a lot of documentaries. There's one, I think it's called Burn on Netflix, about Detroit firefighters, which I found really interesting. And then myself and Kenneth Choi, who's another member of the cast, he had a buddy who was a firefighter out here. So we went down to his station and hung out for about 6 hours. We went on, whenever a call came in, we went with them. Only 3 calls came in that day. And it was a guy had been hit by a car. I say hit by a car. The car had like reversed very slowly and hit this guy. And it was one of the, everybody was a bit like, he's not hurt. He's fine. He's looking for something. So there was that. There was quite an interesting call where this guy had been hiking, and then he just had like real testicle pain. He was like keeled over. He was fine as well in the end. And then a homeless guy had been attacked, which was a darker one and very bloody scene to turn up to. So that was really interesting for us, because it wasn't even the calls going out and seeing the stuff that was the most kind of educational. It was more just being around the guys, the girls at the firehouse, and being in the truck with them and seeing the conversation on the way there and on the way back. And at one point we all just went out to a coffee shop and got some coffees and just like seeing how people interacted with them and how they interacted with each other. It was really interesting just to see that side and to be like, oh, okay, these relationships, guys just make fun of each other all day.
Pretty much.
But in like the most loving way, you know?
Yeah.
It's a true brotherhood and sisterhood. You know, it's a family. It's your home away from home while you're at work, and you need to have those relationships, you know, and that brings us closer together as a unit. You know, the 3 calls that you just described that's a typical day for most engine companies in America, minus the hiking end of it. Hiking calls. But, you know, we're not going to, tsunamis don't happen every day. You know what I mean? Those types of things. You know, recently with what's happened, we've definitely transitioned roles into, you know, EMS has always been a larger part of our careers, but just now with the pandemic, it has taken over pretty much in what we do, let's say. So that's a whole different aspect of it. But I think the show, again, does a good job of showing all those different aspects to it.
And how, so with things being slightly different right now, does that change how the job feels to you, or
100%?
For sure.
Yeah.
Especially for us, because so Rob is in like downstate New York. I'm in central New Jersey. So we're in the harder hit areas from this. And, you know, station life for the last, I think I just heard today, the kids were in school, and I think they've been homeschooled now for 8 weeks. So let's say the past 8 weeks station life of social distancing, masks 24/7, you know, no training, no driving around the coffee shops, you know, things that we would do on our normal basis, you know, no high fives, you know what I mean? Like no anything like that. It's changed the way the firehouse is for us.
It sounds almost like it's becoming, from something that is so tight knit and, like, as you say, like a family, almost quite lonely and isolating, because I'm guessing you can't be around each other too much. For
sure. Spending time, I work in a pretty big firehouse. Well, it's 2 companies and a chief. We could have 3 companies and a chief, and it just so happened that we've been really high on staffing. So we've had 14 people in my station, and most of the day you're by yourself, unless you're in the apparatus or, you know, you're on the floor. But it's not like where all 14 of us are in the same room doing something. We eat in shifts. You know, we don't eat together because we have a smaller kitchen area, so they limit it how many people can be in the kitchen. So it's been a big change, but we're also trying to make it so no one feels isolated, so that doesn't affect you negatively.
Yeah, My firehouse is so small that we can't socially distance. Like it's just not it's not possible. So if anybody has any kind of like a cough or something like that, we're putting a mask on them, and we disinfect the firehouse like 2 times a day. But I think for me, the strangest part of this and the hardest part is that like we're not open anymore. Like, and I mean, obviously we're still there, we're still going on calls, but like we have a car seat program that's very successful, and there are like our new mothers who are, they're bringing a child into this world in this crisis, and we can't have them come to the station because of the rules that we can't help them with their car seat. Like when I see if I'm out with the engine at Home Depot or something, like we can't put that kid in the front seat of the engine and let them like hit the bell kind of thing, and that like that stuff just pains me, because that's what, like, that's one of the best parts of this job is like letting that kid jump up in the rig and put your helmet on and have mom and dad take the picture with them and stuff, and so for me that's been the tough part.
Yeah, and we're starting to see a decline in things on the East Coast, so hopefully we're going to come out of that soon. But for sure, the doors being closed, not being a public figure, and it's something that you just fall into as a firefighter,
of course. I'm sure it's not a conscious choice to like see yourself as this thing. It just happens, and the way people treat you becomes normal, and so I can only imagine that now not being able to access that feel very different.
Yeah, especially too with the weather breaking here, like doors are always up at the firehouse. Like you're out front, like hanging out front of the firehouse after all the work is done during the day, and that camaraderie that goes on in the neighborhood that I work in, it's almost expected that we're all outside at night, and we can't do that anymore at all either. So it's been unique for sure.
I don't know how many lost tourists I usually help with directions too around this time of year, because the door's up, they'll pull up and they'll beep the horn or something, and they'll wander in and be like, "Yeah, I'm trying to find the FDR estate or the walkway over the Hudson," and I'm like, "Oh," and we print them out directions and send them on their way, and like that.
None of that.
Nothing. And two, then there's this end of it too, where you were out in the engine with those guys driving around. So we've been out in the engine going on calls or anything, and it's like you're the only vehicle on the roadway.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, even here in LA, like driving to the grocery store. LA is a city that is known for its traffic.
Yeah.
Clear roads. It's so easy, and it's funny when you can step outside and the air is cleaner. There's like a palpable difference in it, that there are definitely less cars on the road, and just it's interesting because obviously it's a horrible thing that's happening, but possibly there will be some positives that come from it, environmentally and maybe just in the way that we do look at practices and hygiene and stuff, and it's finding that kind of balance, I think.
Well, that's it too, and you see that a lot on social media, where there's a lot of negativity going on about this, that, or the other thing. And for me, and for the way that I kind of do things, it's all about being positive, and it's very easy to go down that negative rabbit hole. But when you try to think of the positives, like I look at this as like more time spent with my kids, more time doing projects around the house, trying to find those positives to keep me going, just so I can stay moderately sane.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, that like I feel guilty to say it sometimes, but I'm actually quite enjoying this time. But I'm also very aware that I'm in a position where I'm able to enjoy this time, and I would be on my break from work now anyway. Like, this would be our break between season 3 and season 4, and that it's one thing for me to be like, it's great, I can read, I can work out, I can spend time with my girlfriend and feel no pressure, but also to remember that that's not the case for most people, and having both of those things in your head at the same time is actually okay and quite human.
And of course, too, you have the financial end of it. We're very fortunate that we are still able to go to work and collect a paycheck.
Yeah.
But our jobs are also putting us into extra harm's way, let's say. And not that it wasn't something that, again, we didn't sign up for, because we knew our jobs were going to be dangerous when we took them. It's just a new kind of danger.
Pandemic was not on the test that I took. There was nothing about a very bad cough that was going to kill you.
They
didn't even say anything about tuberculosis, to be honest. So,
and I guess, right, when you know that you're going into a job like that, you kind of also expect that there will be a wealth of the proper safety equipment and you know, like for example, for nurses who haven't been able to get their PPE or you know, it's been difficult. Like you expect, like if I'm going to be taking on this more dangerous job, the government's going to take care of me though.
Right.
And it's when then that hasn't necessarily happened that it becomes really like, is this what I signed up for? I'm sure.
No, it definitely becomes that very rapidly, you know, when you see that, you know, and especially like for us, and it's like, you know, you learned probably what PPE was 2 years ago when the show started, right? Now PPE is in, everyone in America knows what the word PPE is, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you think people aren't getting the proper PPE that they need, that becomes a big issue. And for my department in the beginning, we had, obviously we have structural firefighting PPE, but this stuff we had very little of because we did EMS, but it wasn't a worry, like Rob had said before. It wasn't that big of a need. And so in the beginning, we were scrambling, we were putting anything together we could to make it happen.
One of the things that I put under the table a long time ago in the firehouse was the quote from Anthony Bourdain. I just pulled it up, is firefighters in my experience are a lot like the Marines I've met over the years. No matter how badly led, ridiculously under-equipped, underappreciated. Oh, come on, phone. No matter how doomed their mission, they take a bizarre and quite beautiful pride in at least being screwed more than everybody else and doing it with style. They seem to do what they do for themselves. It's not a job, it's a calling. And I think when we started looking at like issues with PPE and how we were going to enter this brave new world, like, you know, like we would just kind of look at each other and be like, well, I guess we're fucked, but like we're going to go through with it. Like it's going to be okay. And we figured it out. And, you know, and I saw we saw so much ingenuity in different fire stations across the country, from like even like people using the paint sprayers, you know, to help decon equipment, or a fogger from Home Depot, or, you know, like just the various different methods people were using to disinfect stuff. And, you know, like I can't speak for the whole country, but I know for our area, we've embraced what we can embrace, and we're still going.
That mentality that you just described there of, well, we'll just find a way. Do you think that's something that you see in younger firefighters as well, like guys that are just starting out? Or do you think that is something that experience brings about?
This guy's been doing some homework on us, I think. This is turning into the Oliver show.
Yeah, I like it. I think for younger firefighters, maybe not so much. I mean, the good thing is a younger firefighter has, and we talk about it on the podcast a lot, is that connection to a cell phone, and they can look stuff up. And that's been a huge resource and if anybody's not doing it, they have to tap into their young firefighters for that, because they can look up information and facts. And like if I had one of my probies here, I could be like, tell me who Oliver Stark is. And within like 5 minutes, 3 of them would be around me and be like, all right, he's from here. He just does this. This is what he's done.
Gotcha.
But like that aspect, but like when it comes to dealing with the calls, and like when you first get that COVID patient and everything else, I think the senior firefighters, that's when they come in and they're like, all right, like because you're nervous, you're scared. Like at least I was. The first cardiac arrest we did, when we knew that stuff was around us, and it was like, all right, you know, you had the mask on, you had the gloves on, you had the goggles on. Like we've taken all the precautions. So like take a deep breath and understand that you're doing everything you can do to protect yourself. And then you can kind of give them lead them to where they can, you know, figure that out, accept it, and move on, and know that, okay, we're doing the right thing.
There's definitely a difference with the younger guys coming in. You know, I've been on 16 years now, and they're just different people. They grew up differently than I grew up 16 years ago. My senior man grew up 16 years before that. There's definitely a little bit of lack of the personal connection, you know, because they've grown up in more of a technology age. But you just have to, and we have to, as the older guys and officers, have to adapt to that. And like Rob said, find, you know, their strong points. Like, hey, listen, how do we make a fogger? You know, look online. There's videos online, and they pretty much can find the best one faster than I can.
Yeah.
So it's been very
makes sense.
And something you guys too just did on the show, because Finn told me about this maybe an episode or two ago in this season, is you helped out a retired firefighter.
Yeah. It was a really lovely episode, and the guy that they cast was a firefighter. He was a firefighter for 20 years in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
And yeah, so he was a firefighter for 20 years, and then he quit that and he became an actor. And he was in Rescue Me. He was in Backdraft. So he's then played a firefighter lots of times. And then he came into our show as this retired firefighter, and he was every bit the East Coast firefighter still. He was, and you know, obviously we're a show set on the West Coast, and so he was finding lots of issues with the way that the West Coast firefighters do things. It was really fun, and it was just, I guess part of it was, which I guess you guys could weigh in on, something within the show that my character deals with is that he doesn't really have an identity outside of being a firefighter. It is his whole life. He doesn't have any relationships outside of his firehouse, and basically it was this firefighter who had retired and was basically saying that I don't have any kids, I don't have a wife, I have nothing, I have no one. And all these, you know, people that I thought would be around me forever aren't really anymore, and I'm just lonely. And so it was kind of an eye-opener to my character that, right, this is who I am, this is what I do, but it's okay to have other things in my life. And then towards the end of the episode, he becomes very sick and he knows he's going to die. So my character kind of organizes this send-off. So come and get him out of the hospital, and all his old firehouse are there saluting, and my firehouse, and we put him in a truck and drive him home kind of one last time. So yeah, it was quite an emotional episode, but just a real insight into, you know, what it can be like and how much it can take over your life if you let it, but that it's important to hopefully have something else going on.
It's a very important part of what we do is tradition, you know, and family, like you talk about, but that end of also being able to turn it off and come home to a family, you know, and to say, like, you know, I'm really fortunate in my life where I have work, and then I leave work and I come home and I have Tracy and the boys. And that's a big part of the mental stressors that goes on, and how you can deal with that. And it sounds like, I don't know, maybe that'll change Buck for season 4 for a little bit too, but it's a big thing in Firehouse where you have someone who's just about work.
There was this kind of moment in the episode where, you know, he was talking about all his firehouse and all his great friends, and then my character's kind of like, well, do you still see them? And it was like, you know, we did for the first few years, and then it became, you know, twice a year we'd have barbecues, and then it just kind of becomes a card when one of my new grandkid, and how just, you know, those relationships slowly, which of course is not what's going to happen for everybody, but that as an example in his life, the people that had been so close to him, you know, life happens and things do drift people apart, unfortunately, and that's okay, but just know that if you don't have anything else to cling on to, then you might be left by yourself. So it was a very interesting episode, and he was, as I say, it's quite a character. It's a guy called Jack McGee. So we have a consultant on set, a guy called Mike Bowman, who was chief over here. Really been involved in a lot of things. Every kind of firefighter that I meet in LA knows this guy. But then Jack comes in from the East Coast. He's like, no, we wouldn't do it like that. We do it like this. And it's and so they were butting heads a little bit in the way that you would expect. So it was a lot of fun to get to work with him.
I think years ago I took an East Coast versus West Coast truck class, and it reminded me of like rap culture. Like it was when it was like West Coast, East Coast, and like
yeah.
I was like, are these guys gonna like fight? I mean, like, and it was just part of the class, but like you could see in the room who was from the West Coast, who was from the East Coast, and where they sat. And I was like, the only thing we're missing here is colors, boys. Like we just like tag up or something. I don't know, but it was like it's always interesting to talk to West Coast firefighters from my perspective and them to us. And I remember one guy saying to me one time, he's like, I could never do your firefighting. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh, you got these multiple alarm fires and these big buildings, and you know. And I was like, dude, I don't know if you've looked at me, but I'm not fighting a wildland firefighter. That's insane. He's like, oh no, it's a great time. You should come do it. And I'm like, no, I'm good. Like,
I'm good, B. I'm good.
Yeah, I'll take the high rise any day. Like you do you. But yeah, it's good to see that.
It's funny too that you guys pick up on those types of things. Yeah. You know, like I'm sure that I could I can tell how the East Coast guy would have been for sure. But it's cool that as you guys see that and you pick up on it, and that's firefighting, you know, and that's the emergency services. You know, it's always going to be a little different. There's always going to be that fun and playful aspect.
Healthy rivalry.
Healthy rivalry. It's a nice way to put it. But at the end, as we say on the East Coast, at the end of the day, we all are out there for the same reason, right? And that's the key.
Absolutely. And I think that's the reason that you can make fun of each other and fight, because you know that at the end of the day, you're all on the same side, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing too with 555 is that we have people from around the country, you know, involved with the organization, and we're all the best of friends. Even though, you know, you have a guy from FDNY, Detroit, San Diego, New Jersey, Texas, Florida, we're everywhere. Everybody does things a little differently. My buddy from San Diego told me how to put a palm tree out the other day. Like palm tree. Gave me this whole big thing. I'm like, well, hey, if it ever happens, I'm ready. Like I got that in my
yeah.
You know,
I actually I forgot to tell you this, I think, but the other day, not the other day, 2 months ago now, I went into the gym and I was in one of my 555 t-shirts, and one of the guys was like, "Oh, my buddy works with them." And I was gonna ask him the next time I saw him, like, "Oh, for him from details," but obviously I haven't been back to the gym since. So,
man.
So that conversation
moment when it happens. The 555.
Yeah, the guy called me out. He recognized it, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, again, man, we appreciate the support. You know, that's awesome, and that's one of the things too that Oliver and I spent. Oh, there's a dog there now.
Hermit's come to say hello.
That's all right. We spend a lot of time talking about fitness, because that was something that, you know, we kind of had in common there. And you are, your chosen lifestyle of eating would not be the most popular in the firehouse.
Are you vegan?
I am, yeah, 4 years.
That's awesome. I can't do it myself, but.
Oh, wait, we lost him. Did we lose him?
Might have lost him. Pip, I got to run though.
Well, you can't. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to talk to myself. Oh, he's back. Oliver, are you there?
Oh yeah, sorry. Somebody started trying to call me.
Oh, okay.
Decline the call. So there is.
I don't want to run. I got to run because I got to go pick up our dinner because it's Takeout Friday, and we're trying to do it for local businesses. But thank you for having me on, Pip. I'm sorry I'm leaving you hanging.
No worries, man. Thanks for joining us. It was cool to do this, man.
Yeah, it's great to meet you.
Oliver, it was a pleasure to meet you.
And to you.
Information from Pip, and I'll send you some stuff out. So.
Would love that. Thank you so much. It was it was really a pleasure meeting you.
Not a problem. Have a good one.
Later, Rob. Let's see if he's gonna pop out. All right, now bigger screen.
What I was gonna say before that call came in. So there's actually a firefighter. He's an ex-firefighter now called Rip Esselstein.
Yep. Station 2, right? Engine 2 died.
Oh well, there you go. Engine, yeah. And he was a firefighter, and he then completely vegan and runs triathlons and such. And he went into a firehouse in New York and converted them all. I don't know if they stayed with it, but kind of had them all eating vegan for a week and like showed them all their cholesterol numbers and how everything dropped. And so he's leading the charge for firefighters eating that way. Yeah, because he has that brand Engine 2, which I think is exclusive to Whole Foods. And I tell you what, it's funny because the way that I found out about him is because I was doing a show and walking around Whole Foods, and it was like Engine 2 brand. I was like, I should eat this. I should get that. I'm playing a firefighter now. And so through that, just learned a little bit more. But yeah, I can only imagine that in most firehouses, it wouldn't be the most popular or certainly the most common way of eating.
It would be interesting for sure. And listen, man, I give you all the credit. I know I couldn't do it. I mean, it's just I'm not a very strict diet type person to begin with, let's just say. But I mean, it's one of those things where if it works for you, I say do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not judgy about it. I try not to be too preachy about it. I just kind of live this way, and if asked about it, I'm always happy to talk about it. And then I hope that just by showing that you can do it and still be physical and still eat good food, you know, slowly you start to convert people, because that is the myth, right? That you can't be strong, you can't be fit if you eat that way. Where do you get your protein from and all of that stuff? So just by kind of living as an example of it, I hope is more useful and than being like, you should do this, you got to go vegan, you know, that just pushes people away, rather just kind of set an example and show the proof that it can work for you.
Yeah. And it's amazing how too, when you hear things with diets, like, when you get the preachiness or the pushiness, if you try that for anyone in the emergency services, they are going to push you away in a heartbeat. Like you
Yeah.
have to somehow meet in the middle, and figure out, what's going to be the best for you. And with the firehouse, I think one of the big things we found with 555, when we don't do much with nutrition, but we talk about just portion control, because guys in the station, I mean, you need to eat. We definitely need to eat because you need
Sure.
to be ready to go. But, there's always the old joke of like, don't eat more than what will fit in your mask in case you have a fly.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
say
I
that to a new
can.
kid.
Yeah.
You say that to a new kid and they look back at you and I'm like, oh, trust me, you don't want to find out what happens then.
Wow. I have never ever thought about that, and now I feel like I won't be able to stop thinking about that. So
Every
let's
time,
do that one.
you just need a little bit of smoke and a lot of food, and it's all gonna be bad.
Wow.
And
But do you find that, for the most part, there is an impetus on fitness in firehouses, and that most guys are trying to stay in shape? And
so in today's fire department, today's fire service, yes. Again, 16 years ago when I started, not so much. Especially on the East Coast, we are definitely a little slower on the health tick. Where California, Colorado, Texas, Florida, they seem to be 10 years ahead of us easily when it comes to health and wellness. However, these past 5 years has been to put a real emphasis on our personal health and wellness, between fitness with cardiac related disease and stroke, cancer becoming so prevalent within the fire service, and then the mental stressor end of it, and us talking about things like PTSD and just different mental stresses and suicide and things. So all that is really coming to light, and it's causing a lot of positive change.
It's great, yeah, because I can imagine that perhaps a more stubborn older generation not quite going down that path, but so it's good that it's become part of the conversation, and got to be able to get up those stairs, I guess, and take care of
That's
yourself.
it. And that's kind of where 555 was born too, was, out of a firefighter, a captain in Texas, who was basically like, enough is enough with cardiac related diseases being our leading killer year after year. And he started on Facebook and was like, I'm going to get these younger guys, all the young kids are on Facebook. This is going back, we're 7 years now in. And what we found within like the first year and a half was that, yeah, the younger generation was jumping on board, but that older stubborn guy, the guy like in his 40s, like 45 to 50 age, was starting to reach out and say like, hey, you guys are speaking the truth here and I need to change. So it's been a really cool thing in the fire service to see that change starting to happen.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it, and maybe they'll all be vegan soon enough.
I don't know about that, man. Let's not push that.
Let's not push it, right?
Portion control. Use smaller portions, right? Instead
of
the
one thing at a time.
Baby steps.
One thing at a time.
Exactly. I only got 9 years left. In 9 years, you guys can go totally vegan if that's what you want to do.
It's funny when we do like eating scenes in the firehouse. It's not written in that my characters are vegan or anything, so I just kind of pick at the salad around the stuff on my plate, because it's never been, there's never a time when I go in for any of the meat or anything. Buck eats a lot of vegetables on camera because I never go in for any of the other stuff.
It's just a nice grilled steak
slowly,
just sitting
subliminally there. I'm easing that in just under the radar.
Oh, dude, man. Firehouse steak night is the best night in the firehouse. I'm sorry. It's just hands down. Can't beat it.
I wouldn't know. I would once upon a time have known and been all about it, but yeah, just not anymore.
But it's one of those things too, where even when we talk about vegetables, and like, you can make vegetables taste really good.
Absolutely.
Like how you cook them. If you're such a good firehouse cook, make a vegetable taste good and everybody's going to eat it.
Yeah. And is that a real thing, that there is the cook? Like there's always one guy that does a lot of cooking?
Oh, for the most part, yeah. Like on my shift, we have one guy that does most of the cooking now. So you have your firehouse chefs, and you always want the guy who does it the best. I mean, I want to eat well while I'm there, so.
I guess so, yeah.
Our guy was on vacation the other day, and we have some rookies, and one of the guys was like, why don't we let the rookies cook? And I'm like, why don't we do our part and support a local restaurant and order out tonight?
Yeah. Didn't quite have that trust, huh?
Yeah. Let them try to cook on a night I'm on vacation, maybe. I say we do it this way.
They can they practice at home a little bit first.
Yeah. But so speaking too with fitness and kind of how we even started talking and everything, like what have you been doing? I know one of the things you told me early on was you wanted to prep and train like a firefighter, but what's your fitness routine look like?
Yeah. So I kind of go in phases. So yeah, I think that was about a year ago. I was using a lot of like the brute force sandbags and everything, where I wanted to feel like I could do the job. I didn't want to just look a certain way. I wanted to feel athletically capable to drag someone out of the building, to climb up a ladder, to do whatever I felt like that job would entail. And being on TV, there is a certain look that you need to have as well. So my thing there was, I'll train for the job and my body will follow suit. So there was a lot of that. At the moment, as soon as everything started shutting down, and I figured gym equipment was going to become really hard to get hold of. So I pulled the trigger very early, and I've got quite a nice setup here actually now. I've got like a squat rack, I've got a bench, I've got a bar, I've got a stationary bike, and I've got basically everything I need. So
Nice.
Lifting and focusing on my strength at the moment, because I don't really like going for runs, especially with a mask on. If you're going to run, even then wear a mask, and that sounds horrible to me. So I'm just kind of just lifting and doing some kind of conditioning stuff out of the back, and just trying to stay in that shape for when season 4 does come around, because who knows when that will be.
Yeah, you don't want to be the one guy who didn't stay in shape in the off season.
Yeah, I tell me about it, and I'd be like, yeah, but guys, we were quarantined, and everybody else is like, well, I made it work. So, but also, kind of as you say, even just the mental aspect while being locked down like that's a real, being able to get out of the back and train there, just for my own sanity, not even just for my physical wellness, for my mental wellness, is become really important. And the more that I've started to enjoy it, the more I've needed it mentally. So yeah, it was important to stay on top of it for those reasons as well. I think I would not be feeling great in myself if I'd let that slip.
Yeah, man, and that's a huge thing for us too. As emergency responders, like that mental wellness aspect of working out. Like I always make the joke, I lift heavy things so I don't punch people in the face, but
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
the truth. That keeps me grounded for sure.
Yeah, and you have to have a way to kind of release that tension and go to another place. And if you can put that focus into whatever it is, that barbell, that dumbbell, whatever it happens to be, that sandbag, it's I think it's really therapeutic.
Oh, especially the sandbag. My wife and I did a workout yesterday where we both used sandbags, and each round finished with a sandbag thruster. So the sandbag was up over your head, and you got to just slam it down. And it was 30 rounds, and I'm like, man, if I did this with dumbbells, I wouldn't like it as much, because I don't get to slam the dumbbell down. I have to gently place it on the ground. So that slamming that sandbag down got me through 30 rounds of hell.
No, absolutely. And that's the key to fitness, right? Is whatever gets you through it, finding the things that make it doable. And another huge, for me, mental benefit of it, sense of achievement, right? That I couldn't lift that a month ago. Now I can lift that weight. Like there's these little goals, these little barriers that you can smash through, and once you do that in a little way, I think they start adding up, and they start translating to other areas of your life as well. You go, wow, I was able to push through and get this thing in my fitness aspect, so why in this aspect of my life can't I do the same?
Exactly. And then too, for us, when you think about that with work, like I know I just put everything out on the table in a workout for 30 minutes. So when that fire does come in, I know that I have 30 minutes of solid work in me that I can put out, and you really test yourself in those instances. And for me, that's been huge. And then something that maybe most people don't do while they're working out is I try to work on mental games in my head, where like I'm deep in a workout, like 20 minutes in, and I'm trying to think of things like that I'd be doing in a fire, just so that I'm so worn out, but I'm working my mind too to stay training and using it for things like that.
Yeah, because I guess in your job more than most is having to pair the mental with the physical and be able to do both at the same time.
Yeah. And that's that look that you gave when, you rescued one person from the water during the tsunami, and you turn around and you see 12 more and you're like, you gotta be kidding me. Like you just said, that captain said, I mean, that, granted, the tsunami might have been a little bit off kilter where that wasn't going to happen, but it could. As we say, anything can happen on any day. And you have to be ready for all of it. So I think, like you and I talked about, even though the show is a show, there's still that aspect of anything can happen.
Yeah. I think it's the case of putting real life context into exaggerated situations.
Yes, exactly. And that interpersonalness, that all the characters seem to play with each other and put out there really is key. And that I keep going back to that dispatcher end, and I really didn't even think we would talk about that, but I just think it's such a big highlight for them because they're like the unsung heroes. They don't get any awards. They don't get any accolades, like there's no, dispatcher or medal day or anything like that. I shouldn't say that. Places do that, but it's not a very big fanfare.
Well, yeah, and I think because, and just through ignorance and no malice, most people think, I just sit here and answer the phones. And of course, it's not that. It's so much training, and as Rob was saying, so much of a psychological impact on them as well. And there's so much that goes into that job that I just think we don't think about.
Yeah, no one definitely does, and that's something. Now I have a whole nother guest that I got to get on. I got to get on a few of my dispatch friends and have them come on and talk about their end of it. Like, so it's always good when you learn something in a podcast from someone too to say. And maybe if you can make a call to Jennifer Love Hewitt if she wants to come on and talk about her experience and be more.
I'll see what I can do.
More than happy to interview her there. But speaking of the show and celebrities and all, I have a co-host that wants to join me here for a little bit of towards the end wrap up.
Let's do it.
Come on over, Finn, man. Yeah, bring your questions. Come on, man. Slide in. So, come on, hop in. I just got to get ready. Hold on. So, for those of you out in the size up land who don't know, this is my son Finn. Finn will be 10 in 3 weeks. Yep, it's 3 weeks from now. And he's really the reason Oliver and I met, because he was a fan of 911. And I told him Buck like 555. It was pretty much all over, right, buddy? So he came up with some questions from Buck. He's gonna go ahead and ask away here, and we'll see where we go. So one at a time, buddy. Go ahead. But look, I gotta read a little too. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you think the stuff in the show relates to like real people who are firefighters, like in real life?
Yeah, I hope we do a good job of making them feel seen and represented, and kind of showing the emotions that they may go through on any given day, and making that kind of accessible so that everyday people can understand what a firefighter goes through and feels when they're running into danger.
You think he does a good job of that? And, you live with a firefighter, right?
Yeah.
He did tell me I'm not as cool as Buck once.
I never said that.
I mean, it's a pretty high bar.
All right, what do you got? Number 2.
Why did you choose to become an actor?
It wasn't what I'd always wanted to do. I'd always done it, but I didn't think it was going to be my career. And then when I was about 18, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I thought, hey, there's this thing that I have always enjoyed. Maybe there is a way I can actually make a living out of it. That would be a dream, right? To make a living out of something you enjoy. So I just slowly started creeping into it and trying it out. And thankfully, it moved in the right direction. And here I am now.
Pretty awesome. And too, that's again with emergency services responders, we all love our jobs. You couldn't do this job if you didn't love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, so I'm
not the kind of job where you think, oh, I'm gonna go to work again. It's like, this is, it's who you are.
Yeah. And again too, in full, like this show is all about honesty and things. I would say that the first shift that I went into once COVID-19 once everything became real, lockdown started happening and the call volumes changed. It was the first time I didn't want to go to work.
Yeah. Wow.
I honestly, the night before, like I barely slept. Like I didn't want to go in there because it was such an unknown for us it's still an unknown now, but in the beginning, it's just, you just didn't want to go. It was very, like you said, it was.
And I guess, we're very adaptable beings, humans. So I guess now it's kind of become the new normal in some respects. Whereas, I can imagine the first day, the first week was like, you just don't know what you're going into.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about like the hierarchy of things, with you have a captain on your show, I'm a lieutenant. Like, it felt like every time I came down to where the guys were, they would just look at me because they knew I was going to have a new order or a new memo or something just changed, and it became something that got us through, like 3 shifts in where it's like, LT's coming downstairs, like, here we go, what's new, so it's those things that get you through like that, but we all still love it, and that's why we do it. So
of course.
All right, what's your last one, Bubs?
This is the last one. How hard is it to put on an American accent the whole time?
It's something that I've lived here in America for 4 years, right? So it's around me all the time. So I think I'm always taking it in. And some days are harder than others. Sometimes it depends what the words in the script are. There are certain phrases that I just, for no real reason, happen to struggle with more than others. But I always find a way, hopefully. And just lots of hard work and putting in the time to make it feel easy when it isn't always to begin with.
I think that was one of the biggest things for this guy when we became friends on Instagram, and you went for the first time on live, and you were talking, and I'm like, Finn, is that the right guy? And he's like, yeah, that's him. And I'm like, it doesn't sound like the right guy to me. Like,
well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing from my point of view.
Right? You figured that one out. What else? You got anything else for Mr. Buck there, for Mr. Oliver? No, I'm calling you Buck. Buck the firefighter. Like.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So what do you got out there? So we got season 3 finale. You can hang out for a little bit, bud. Starts, if we get out before Monday, it's going to be Monday night, right?
Yeah, so we've got this huge train derailment that was a lot of work went into, and I think that there was a really huge train derailment. I hope I'm not wrong when I say this. I think it was in Chatsworth, in California. We had one of the guys the guy that ran that scene come in and work with the writers, and he was on set with us and to kind of try and replicate some of the reality of what they dealt with through that. So yeah, lots of chaos and a real mass casualty situation, and it was a big one, the kind of one where we get to the set and they've got this train hoisted up in the air, and we're just like, I can't believe this is the set today. This is the thing that we get to go and work in and climb around in. It's a pretty huge one.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that happens. It does not happen every day. We train for events like that. If you have, I have the Northeast Corridor that runs through my city. So, we train for things like that, but, it has not happened, knock on whatever I can think of, in my career there or whatever. But, those are real life incidents, and, probably having someone on set there, that went through it to explain to you how that is. And use that word chaos, and that's what an emergency scene is. It's controlled chaos, and especially.
Yeah, and one thing he said to me that really stuck out, right, that illuminated this kind of whole other part of the job that I've never thought about was, so the train was on its side, so they had to go in through the windows, and the way that it ended, that some of the people that didn't make it, their bodies were on top, so they had to go through these bodies to get to the people that they could help. But they said that, ideally they just cast those bodies aside because there are people down there who needed to help. But because there was such media attention, obviously they couldn't be shown to just be throwing these dead bodies out of this train. So it kind of slowed everything down. And thinking about having to balance the kind of media aspect with actually just getting the job done. And there are people down there that we can save, and just a whole other element of the job that I never really thought about.
And that's something too that now is even more prevalent, because when we pull up on calls, all you see is this.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. We've all got one now. Yeah.
And now too, everyone can be live.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because now you have Facebook Live, Instagram Live. So that has been a huge change in not the way that we operate so much, but just something that we have to be aware of.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. Because, yeah, like, you know, either way they were trying to get there to say they were doing the right thing, but there was a way that might be considered disrespectful or something. And it's like, but this is the job, right? Right now, there are actually people we can save. And I can't imagine how frustrating that must have been in that moment of, if we lose someone because of this, that's just, you know, that's a hard one to take.
Yeah, it's definitely a new mental stressor that we are constantly on camera everywhere we go. You know, everything we do is recorded. You know, if we go to fires now, we scan the crowd after the fire and ask people for their cell phone video, because we use that for training now, because you can actually go back and see
Wow.
what you
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah.
You know, and we have one. I posted a fire that I was on last summer right up the street from my firehouse, and I mean, it was rocking when we pulled out the door. There was a guy who had probably one of the best videos I've seen of our fires, but he's singing a Dominican song, Fuego Fuego, the entire time we're doing it. It's like 3 minutes. The guy sings the whole song while he's videoing us at work. And it's like, you know, when you bring your own hype man to the fire, that's what we do now.
Yeah.
Right, Finn? We brought the hype man to that fire?
That was a weird one. Like, the guy's just standing there looking at the fire, and he's like, oh my God.
So, but that's another huge aspect to that. So it's, again, these are things that honestly, even talking to you a few times, we never got too deep dived into it like we did a little more today. It's amazing to hear, you know, just how much you guys are putting into this to make this show more realistic. Even saying like mass casualty incident, you know, like MCI. That's a term most people don't know.
I stole that one from the script.
Well,
trying to sound in the know.
You sounded official, like, man. You got me.
There we go. I'll take it.
Sweet. So you're finishing up with that. You know, season 4 has been picked up, which I know, you know, for anyone, having another season is a big deal. Right now.
Yeah. No, I tell you, it's especially nice right now because, you know, through uncertain times and a lot of people are out of their jobs, so knowing that is ahead whenever it is that we're able to get back to it, it's been very reassuring.
Cool, man. Well, you got anything else in the works you want to promote while you're on the? Not that many people listen to my podcast, but you know, you got charity.
There's nothing else. Just, you know, 911 takes up most of my time, and you know, just hope everybody's staying safe and taking the precautions they're meant to be taking, and you know, thank you for what you do. You know, it's much appreciated, and I hope that what I'm doing is showing some kind of tribute and paying tribute to you guys.
Nah, man, I appreciate you, dude. I appreciate everything you've done, you know, and just too, like, you know, Oliver's been so cool with Finn, like, since day one when I met him. Like, you know, Finn gets birthday messages from him and just cool stuff. So I can't thank you enough for all that. You know, that support is awesome for family. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Twitter, Instagram, Oliver Stark, 2Ks. That's where I am. That's where you can see more things of my face if you want to.
You can watch live episodes of 911 with Oliver and comment on it too.
Occasionally, yeah. But apart from that, you know, if this does end up going up before, then I hope people will check out the finale 911, which is Monday the 11th at 8 p.m. on Fox, and it would be cool if people could tune in.
It's not like they got anything else to do but watch TV. I mean, they've probably already seen Tiger King like 6 times.
I mean, yeah, exactly that.
Awesome, Oliver. Well, man, thanks for coming out with me. I really appreciate it, man. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Remember, you can find us on Instagram at @the_size_up. We are on YouTube. Where are we on now? And I got to remember YouTube, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes. Go on there and drop some 5-star ratings, because apparently that's a big deal in the podcast world, which I still am not sure how it all works. I want to thank National Fire Radio for all their support and letting the Size Up happen and giving me the platform to put these messages out there. And don't forget to check out our friends Rush the Bus. They just got on iTunes and I believe SoundCloud as well as YouTube. You know, Julie and Pete are really the true frontline responders for the COVID-19 response in Brooklyn. And I know they're going to be talking a lot about that in the next few weeks here. So check them out too. And we will catch up with you on the next episode.